Hey there, didn't see ya. Did you know that tools aren't only used for repairing sheds, but teachers have them too? It's just slightly different, you see. Teachers use tools to kind of direct their classroom to certain learning outcomes, like lectures, labs, group work, inquiry projects, stories and games, and more. Just note that not all teaching strategies work for the same classroom. It's a teacher's job to see what kind of learning outcomes are necessary and what steps to take to get there.
According to our research, the National Research Council defines 8 essential elements of science. Thus, we have outlined what these practices are and what teaching strategies might be best used to address each learning outcome. Asking questions. This element of science is often addressed in labs, but labs might not always be the most efficient way to do so. Because labs use significant amounts of class time, creating a lab for the purpose of asking questions might be less efficient than leading the class in group activities or inquiry projects. That being said, if the teacher purposefully combines several elements of science into one activity, then asking questions should be a part of lab work.
Developing and using models. The use of specific labs can be a great way to heighten this practice. For example, the use of any lab that allows students to build models based on their own understanding. A great lab to show this is the Marshmallow and Toothpick Lab, where students need to build a tower as tall as possible with limited supplies.
Planning and carrying out investigations. Labs lend themselves into this practice perfectly. The original purpose of labs was for scientists to experiment and build an understanding of what was going on around them. Likewise, students can investigate their own questions relevant to the course content.
Analyzing and interpreting data. Through labs, students are forced to comprehend data and numbers, then draw their own conclusions about what they have discovered.
Using mathematical and computational thinking. Math and computational thinking are not predominantly addressed by labs because most lab exercises give the students the equations to work with. Instead, this aspect of science is frequently addressed by worksheets.
6. Constructing explanations. Labs implore students to come to their own understanding by drawing on what is going on around them.
7. Engaging in argumentation from evidence. Labs that involve closed groups of students can be a great way of engaging this practice. For example, a teacher could make a lab that makes students come to their own conclusions separately from one another before calling them all forward to share what their conclusions were. This will cause students who came to different answers to think critically about what they saw and debate with one another until a common solution is met.
8. Obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. Seeing as labs are often done in partners or groups, students must communicate their information and results effectively.
So on top of general learning targets for science, the BC curriculum has outlined specific learning targets for courses such as Physics 11. It is a teacher's responsibility to look at these learning targets and evaluate which ones are best addressed by labs and which ones they might want to employ other teaching strategies.
According to the BC Physics 11 curriculum, it's important that students formulate multiple hypotheses and predict multiple outcomes. Labs foster an environment that promotes creative thinking and development. Teachers can organize pre-lab activities where students are required to hypothesize and challenge their ways of thinking. It's also important that students use appropriate SI units and appropriate equipment, including digital technologies, to systematically and accurately collect and record data. Labs are an excellent way of having students get familiar with units and conversions. Almost all labs will have unit conversions of some sort. Additionally, higher-level labs make use of programs such as Capstone and equipment like Pasco to help further develop students' understanding of course content.
Of course, not all learning targets are best addressed by lab work. An example of this is that students must learn to apply first people's perspectives and knowledge, other ways of knowing, and local knowledge as sources of information. This curricular competency is an example of when a teacher should use alternative methods. For example, a teacher could rely on outside learning or learning through nature to teach first people's knowledge. Furthermore, a teacher could bring in an elder to better teach the first people's perspective on science. A second curricular competency is that students must demonstrate a sustained intellectual curiosity about a scientific topic or problem of personal, local, or global interest. Even to address learning targets that are inherently First Peoples related, teachers can be culturally responsive by increasing the variety of their methods of instruction. If a teacher were to only do labs, then we would have the same problem as with our current textbook-loving system. To address this learning target, I would encourage group work, or inquiry projects. A keen teacher could integrate this through labs. However, that topic is for our next video.